that a red icon has appeared indicating the meeting is recorded. We're asking everyone to just let the students know when you plan to record a meeting. And if you're going to be talking about a topic, maybe in an English class or something, where something can be taken out of context, or you want to allow everyone to share openly, maybe it's not a good time to record. But for the most part, recording meetings is perfectly fine. Just I would recommend everyone just let the kids know, even though they can see the icon there. So let me share my screen. To do that, you click Present Now on the bottom right. And I'm going to share my entire screen, but you could also just share a single window like Chrome or Word or PowerPoint or whatever you want to share content-wise. And now I'm going to go over to this meeting agenda, which I also linked to in chat. So preparing your physical space. So some of the key points to remember when you're doing a Google Meet is they're not just absorbing what you're saying. They're looking at your space. They're looking at you. You want to design your space. So before your first class, you want to make sure all your meeting materials are available. And we'll discuss ways you could share Google Meetings with your students or your peers in a little bit. A couple of links here. The K-12 student expectations, definitely want to look at this. So this is a great document to show what we expect from the students, and I can extend that to what we expect from everybody. The Basking Ridge faculty remote checklist, and this is an example of Brian's norms for his class. So setting expectations in your classroom, we all do it. First day of class, you tell kids how they're going to ask questions. Do they get to call out? Do they raise their hand? What do you expect of your children? This is just a new classroom, and we need to define our expectations and communicate them to the students. Okay, so some etiquette things about a Google Classroom, or excuse me, a Google Meet, is you want to find a quiet space with minimal and no distraction. I'm wearing headphones. I highly recommend wearing headphones. It helps with noise. Adjust your camera angle and your posture. You want to look at the camera. You don't want to be off in the distance if you're going to try to engage in eye-to-eye contact as opposed to sharing a screen. I'm not going to read all these bulleted items. Feel free to review that document on your time. Once your first classes begin, take a few moments to, acknowledge the absurdity of the moment. Maybe an icebreaker. Check in with everyone, make sure they're well, emotionally and otherwise. Set ground rules, class norms, all that sort of stuff. When you're not speaking, it's good etiquette and conferencing to mute your microphone. You can decide if that's the way everyone should be at all times, or if you want to open up class discussion, have people unmute their microphones. You could say, hey, I want everyone's camera on. I want to make sure they're in front of their computers. Or you could say, hey, if you don't feel like your camera ready, you don't want to share your face, you can turn your camera off. That's for your classroom and your rules, and you decide. And then handling distractions. Lots of distractions in everyone's homes right now. I have a house full. Everyone else does too. At some point, my toddler will probably run into the room, and I'll turn off my camera. I'll acknowledge what just happened. I'll say, hey, yeah, this is Tommy, and he's curious why I'm home, and he's loving life right now. And then I'll, return the class on track. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of puppy breaks over the coming week as everyone pets jumps into their lap. But again, just acknowledge it and redirect that class back. So if we're going to continue down the list, again, I think everyone at this point has set up at least one Google Meet, but if you haven't, you can just go to meet.google.com. And you can just do what I would call is an ad hoc meeting. Something nice that you may not have been aware of is that your agenda for the day does appear here. So if you have things scheduled, they'll just pop right in to your meeting agenda on your Google Meet. So you don't have to track every single one of these 10-digit codes. If they're scheduled properly, they'll just appear here. Now, the way we're recommending specifically our upper school classes, and our middle school classes have a slight variant on this because of their scheduling, is to utilize the calendar entries that are already in place. And what I mean by that is I have Brian's schedule up because I don't actually teach a class. So we see here, let me just do a check-in. This is something that's probably valuable to do from time to time. I don't want to just ramble on. Everyone can hear me and see me, right? Yep, I see heads nodding. That's great.
Yes.
Okay, and I have a question about which document I'm working off of. I will reshare it, and that brings up a good point. Oops, I don't think that's the right doc. Let me capture it here. So if you would come into a meeting room late, this is an important point. This chat doesn't show you your history. So if you arrived after exactly 2 p.m., you didn't see my post. But now I've reposted it at 2:07, and now you'll be able to see the message again. So be cognizant of that for any students and you're going to be posting into chat. We recommend any critical, high priority data, things you really want to disseminate to your class, put them in Schoology, because that's going to persist much better than in a chat. Now, there are a number of ways you can capture this chat. If you record the meeting, you'll get a log of it, and we'll go into a little more detail on that in a bit. But it is good to do check-ins with the room, especially if everyone's on mute, just to make sure everyone's still on the same page and you're not talking to nobody. So back to the agenda, where we're going to be discussing creating a Google Meet from a calendar entry. So we see here, this class has 2 sections, and I want to schedule a meeting with all the students in this section. This only works in the Google web interface. This wouldn't work from your phone or from if you're using like Outlook, for instance. So you tap it once, then you hit the 3 dots, and then duplicate. It's important you duplicate the event because you can't actually at the primary event because you're not the owner of it. But if you duplicate the event, you'll see the time and the date remain the same, and all the participants are in the room. And then all you have to do is click Add Conference. And that's it. You've just scheduled your first Google Meet. If you click Save, they'll send out to all the students. Now, I'm not going to send it to all the kids right now, but just know that if you hit Save, you're done. But there's a couple of other things you really should consider doing. If you click this down arrow, right, you see the meeting ID and the phone number, and most kids are going to just click this link. So I would copy this link address, and I'd bring it over to Schoology, and then go into my class, and I'd add a material. Now, you could just add it as a link, and that's fine, and then everyone will have the link. But I like the idea of it appearing in the upcoming meetings area over here so that they know, like, a couple days ahead, oh, don't forget, you have a synchronous session coming up with Mr. Burkhart. So you could add a discussion, and then I'm just going to title it something basic. And now you could either just paste the link in, which is good enough, or you can use the embedded link feature, and then class meet link. And that's how it's going to look. So it could look both ways. And then the most important piece is the due date. We want to put the due date in, and I think it was like 8:30 or something. If you do that, and now we're going to unpublish, right? You normally want to publish this, but I don't want to spam the kids.
Right.
And then it's going to appear in the upcoming events.
Dave, there
for
was
all the
a
students.
question
Yeah.
about that. If we put it on an update or we do it the way that you just show, I would say that we can do both, right? If it is in advance, we can do it the way that you just showed us. But if it is perhaps the same day, you can always publish it on an update. for
So
them.
the key difference between a discussion and an update is an update has no reminder.
Okay.
So in essence, they're both fully functional. You can
Mhm.
make it an assignment. You can make it a link. You can make it an update. All those are choices. But if you use update, you don't get the upcoming event feature.
Okay.
Now, you may not want that or need it. If you don't, an update is absolutely fine. And updates will go into your news feed, the Schoology news feed, which is a good reminder place as well. So if you're used to using updates with your class, I'll go back to one of the key points. Use the tools you're comfortable with. If you like updates and your students know you use updates. There's nothing wrong with that. No reason to change.
Okay.
Now,
Thank
this is specific, I think, more towards middle schoolers. I know that your intention in the middle school is to merge your classes. So what I'm doing here, and let me back out and do that again. So after you click Add Conference and you have the Google Meet, you hit the down arrow key. Then you put your mouse over Meeting ID, right? And you could edit the meeting ID. So I just copied this one. This is for section 2. And now I'm going to go to my other section of the class. And I'm going to hit the dots again. And I'm going to duplicate again. And I'm going to add a conference again. But this time, when I hit the down arrow, I'm going to go to the pen. And I'm going to change the ID to the other meeting ID. And now when I hit save, section 3 is going to get an invitation with the same room as section 2. So now I've merged my 2 conferences into one meeting room. And
In
that's
the middle
exactly what the
school,
middle schoolers are looking to do.
and if the classes are already merged, then you don't have to do that step. Is that correct?
The classes are already merged in Schoology, not
Yes.
in calendar invitations.
Oh, I see.
Your calendar invitations are still unique.
I see.
So you'll have to do this for calendar invitations. So you would just copy the link and then share it that way. Now, for the middle school, keep in mind, when you find a calendar invitation to duplicate, the time's going to be wrong. For the upper school, your schedule is going to remain consistent and you're not going to have to adjust your time. For your middle schoolers, Monday is Science Day. Make sure you go into the calendar and adjust the times properly here. The upper school is not going to have to do that, but middle school, make sure your agenda meeting items are properly timed. And then when you do either an update or a discussion in Schoology, make sure that those times are accurately reflecting the new schedule in the middle school. So that is a key point that I want to reinforce. So that's how you would merge referencing. And the beauty of that process of doing that invitation is it creates lots of breadcrumbs. The kids are going to see an invitation. They're going to see a notification that the meeting is going to start. They're going to see it in Schoology. If they go to meet.google.com, their agenda view is going to have their meeting for the day already there. So there are going to be lots of ways for the kids to find your lesson without scrambling to look for some 10-digit code. Now you can reuse these codes. I want to be full disclosure. I don't know exactly how long they last. We've reached out to Google and they're being ambiguous. Now for our mathematicians in the room, it's a 10-character code. So there's lots of options, right? There's billion something options. So they're not going to expire immediately, but we don't know exactly how long they last. So if you notice you're reusing a code and it breaks, simply create a new one and communicate that back out. If you choose to use a new code every time, that's fine as well. But you can reuse the same code if you want. That's no problem at all.
And if we don't do those merge, because I'm not sure I 100% got it, you could just send it or to each section in the middle school?
Yeah, if you choose to not invite the kids on the calendar, right, that's absolutely a choice. You don't have to send a calendar invite. The key is to disseminate the information in a way that you're comfortable, in a way that's effective for the kids. And if you feel using a Schoology update or a Schoology discussion to disseminate that information to everybody, that's great, do that. I'm just showing you a number of ways to do it so it lands in lots of places for the kids.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there are many ways to skin this cat. The key is to get the code to the kids effectively before the meeting starts. Because what you don't want to do is spend the first 10 minutes of the meeting fielding emails and chat messages about how do I get into the room. You want to effectively give that information out ahead of time.
And
And
you can
that's why calendar events can sometimes be very effective.
And you can use the same code, Dave, for both sections, and then they'll
We
both.
certainly in the middle school, we strongly recommend it. I think it's required. It's not a recommendation. I
Okay.
believe the middle school is merging their sections.
They are merged, but what I'm saying is if you post it on Schoology and the sections are merged, if you post it once, it'll both sections will be able to use it to get into the
Yeah.
Google.
So if you've merged your courses in Schoology, you can assign it to both sections at the same time, and all the children will see it. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Dave, sorry, to create that Google Meet invitation, the link,
Yes.
I had a long time ago. I have created in my contact list in my Google email. I've created my sections, my block 1 and my block 2. They are all like groups and sections. So when I create an invitation through the calendar, if I
You could add them. Yes.
as guests,
You could absolutely do that. The only thing I would say is you may want to check on them, because when you tell me it was a long time ago, I'm worried enrollment has changed in some of your sections. You would know that much better than I would. If your class hasn't had any add drops
no,
and your groups are still accurate, you
they
could absolutely go to the calendar
uh-huh.
and add what Google calls distribution lists. They call them labels.
Oh,
You could add labels. So like when you create contact groups, you
Yep.
could add them right here and they will auto-populate.
yeah, right.
I think I have one, something called like nurse. Yeah. So
Okay.
I have a couple that I have that would auto-populate, and they would fill in all the kids as well. And that's absolutely fine to do. Not all faculty members have taken that step of creating distribution lists, but if you have taken that step, you could certainly leverage it here.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I have. Okay.
Yep. So another cool feature inside of the calendar event, and another reason to use the calendar event, is distributing content. So if you have some worksheets or something, obviously Schoology is the #1 and best place to distribute content. But you could additionally drop it right here as an attachment, which is just another place for kids to get it. Because inevitably, you go into the meeting, they're like, what document are you working off of? Or I don't see that. Where is it? And if you've linked it here, they don't have to leave the window, right? And they get to maintain focus. And you get to say, oh, on the bottom left corner of the screen where it says Remote Learning PD, click that caret, and you're going to see details. And to the right of details, you're going to see attachments. Now, to this specific meeting, because I didn't invite any of you, you don't see attachments. But if I did invite you using the calendar event, you would see those attachments here. And sharing settings would be decided by you. You could share with everybody, or you could share with specific people, depending on the sensitivity of the document. But it's just another method of disseminating information. You could just as easily take the link and put it in comments. So again, many ways to do a task. And just try to use a workflow that you're already comfortable with. No reason to learn new tools right now. Just continuing down the list. Okay, so again, these are all hyperlinked. A number of them are hyperlinked to Google articles, some the tech office created, but audience questions. So I'm loving the way we're engaging right now. If you have a question, you unmute yourself and you ask the question, and I'm completely okay with that. With your class, and specifically if you're going to have larger classes, you may not want that level of freedom. You may want to be more restrictive and say, hey, please post your questions in the comments, or post something like, I have a question. And then when I acknowledge you, then you can unmute your phone and microphone and ask that question. These are all just classroom norms you're going to have to decide on. But I really like this engagement method of where you have a question, interrupt me. I'm fine with that. I'm good working that way. We've discussed recording at the very beginning, but let's get into some more details about that. So everyone can still see my screen, right? Great.
Yes.
So on the bottom right corner, where it says more options. Again, the 3 dots in the Google world is like the breadcrumb to more information, that vertical ellipsis. So we're currently recording, and some information about recording. So once the recording's complete, it automatically goes to your Google Drive folder in a folder called Meeting Recordings, or Meet Recordings. All
When I
those,
was working with that, there was definitely a lag time.
there's absolutely a lag time, and the longer the video, the longer the lag.
Okay.
I usually see about a 20-minute delay from the ending of the recording to when I get an email. You get an email notification that the recording is ready, which is always nice because you tend to forget after class. And then you can post that recording, and that's what we'll be doing with today's PDs. You'll see postings of those recordings in the agenda. And the way you post is really simple. So let me open up a Drive folder. And you get to see my disorganized Drive. And here's the folder. Google created this folder for me, and then the content within it. And I've had a number of recordings. And I want to point out something just as a point of fact about how quickly things are evolving. I made Google Meet recordings a couple of days ago, the 12th and the 20th, just for testing purposes. I hadn't used the tool before. And then between the 20th and today, there was an advancement. It used to be Google Chat wasn't saved. It wasn't persistent. Now, when you do a recording, the chat log comes with it as a separate file. And now that could be really valuable for some of your classes, and other classes it's not really that valuable. But depending on what's happening in your chat, that's a really nice feature. You may want to share that content with your class. Now it comes in as just a plain old file, and you could open it with a Google Doc. And then you could change the sharing settings, and you could upload that to the same posting. And here's another reason why you may want to use a discussion as opposed to an update, but updates will do this too. You can now add additional content. You can go into the post, right? And you could say, hey guys, here's the chat log and the video recording for today's class meeting. And that's something that we need to be really cognizant of, right? I mean, hopefully, but who knows, there may be times when some of the students aren't able to attend because they're unwell, or they have another obligation, or there's a conflict, or for whatever reason. Leaving these really valuable breadcrumbs as to what you're doing in the class is going to keep everyone up to speed, especially with distance learning. A trail of what you've done is key, right? It's just like for the kids who miss class. It's hard for them to catch up if you don't let them know what you're doing. So you can go in here. Here is the log from today's discussion, right? And then you could just attach a file or upload a link. You know, all the same tools you've always used in Schoology are available. And that all comes in right there on the meeting recording. So nice and convenient. What's simple about this is that you don't have to like do a lot of video editing. You don't have to upload to YouTube. You don't have to go into some post process like iMovie or whatever and do anything. It's just there. And it's pretty effective. I think the quality is very nice. It's not super high quality, but it's good enough. If you have good lighting in your space and it's quiet, you're going to get a good video.
Sorry, David. You said that earlier that Google created a folder for you and then they put the recordings?
That's correct. Right in the root, that's a technical term, but right in the main folder of my drive, this is called the root directory.
Okay.
Google, after I did my first recording, it made a folder called Meet Recordings. That Meet Recordings folder will not be there until the first recording. Similar to the way that Schoology makes a folder, like the Schoology Drive Assignments folder. If you use Drive Assignments in Schoology, this folder won't be there until the first time you do one.
Okay, so that's only if you initiated that meeting, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Because, I mean, right now I've been in a few meetings that I have not initiated them, and they have been recorded, and that was a few hours. I have not received any recordings yet.
If you're not the host,
You don't.
or you don't press the record button, you will not get a notification about the recording.
Okay.
Which is it's a slight change from the way things are done a couple of weeks ago. I don't want to get into the
Right.
nitty gritty on that one, but recording was a little bit different, and they're making positive changes towards the product, and I anticipate more changes to come. And as we hear about those changes or improvements, we're going to communicate them to the community. Like just 3 weeks ago, everyone in the room was allowed to kick everyone out of the room. Now, that's a funny conceptual thought, right? But in a classroom environment where you're going to have behavioral issues, that's a dangerous game. Now, this doesn't happen at Pingree, right? I mean, Pingree kids are really respectful, but it would be really funny to kick me out right now. Like, I would find that funny. But they've obviously disabled that feature because, let's face it, I mean, it's too big of a carrot. Who can resist that? I would kick myself out.
Okay. Good.
Okay. So let's go into something that's a little bit more advanced. I'm not trying to scare anyone away, but this is a cool feature, especially if you like to do annotation. So you have a resource, maybe it's a worksheet or just a whiteboard, and you want to talk about something. So I'm going to stop presenting my screen, and I'm going to use my phone. But you can use an iPad or a tablet or a phone, whatever you have, if you want, and download the Google Meet app. Okay, now you can run all these class sessions from your phone if you feel more comfortable doing that. If like you have this like great chair, good lighting, comfortable, go ahead and run a Google Meet from your phone if you don't think you're going to need additional resources. Let me caveat that by saying, like, if you don't feel screen ready, turn off your camera, right? I mean, you want to present your best self. You know, you don't want to be laying down. You just want to look really good. If you don't think you're screen ready, turn off your camera, and that's perfectly okay. But you know, if you want to run a Google Meet from your phone, go ahead and open Meet. Now I'm going to join this Meet session from my phone, and I'm going to present my screen. So what you're going to see right now is I just joined the meeting, and you're going to see that I'm going to start broadcasting my screen. Now, what's really cool about this is you could use a bunch of apps, and I've been using this demonstration of like this kids app that my son loves to draw on, right? And it's just an example. Obviously, the best tool I think for this job is Explain Everything. And I will open Explain Everything in just a moment. But I think this is a good illustration of what you can do. So you can just open up an app, and then you're going to see as I work, there's a bit of a lag, right? So you want to be cognizant of that lag when you're doing screen annotation. You want to work slower than you would at the whiteboard because you don't want the kids to miss what you did. They're like, how'd you get there? We missed it. There was a 10-second buffer and now it's gone. So you want to be cognizant of those sort of things. So work a little slower than you normally would. Have fun with it. But like I'm saying, if you really want to use a tool, it's not going to be a cartoon drawing tool. Explain Everything is an excellent tool. I'm only using the limited features. They are providing the full feature set for free. A lot of other educational companies are doing right now. They're being really generous. Everyone's really banding together and giving the teachers as many tools as possible. It's a great time for educational technology. So I have a bunch of projects already. So that's one of the problems with the limited feature. You're only allowed 3 projects at one time. So here's my terrible doodle from a previous session. So I'm going to pinch my screen and kind of move that around. But again, it's the same sort of thing. And you could just doodle on here, or really what you're going to use this for is not to just draw bad stick figures. Is you're going to open up a PDF and you're going to upload it. And you're going to go through problem sets in mathematics. You're going to annotate in English. You're going to highlight important details, much in the same way you do with your computer. Now, if you're running a Surface, I applaud you for being a Windows user, and I love you. But that's a sidebar. You already have a touch screen and you don't need to worry about this. If you're a Mac user, you don't have that to leverage, right? So you need something that's going to help you leverage annotation and digital technologies like that. Now, there's a lot of cool tools out there. There's a lot of things you can use. You can use Explain Everything, OneNote, lots of options. But for this week, let's focus on keeping it simple. Let's use the tools we know. Let's communicate and collaborate. And there's plenty of time to dig into tools. And I was just talking to Eileen yesterday about all the library resources that are available and all the work that the library resources, just like educational technology tools, they're opening themselves up to give teachers more tools for their tool bag. And you know, the library department's a great resource. They're going to help you with LibGuides, and we got to keep the school moving forward, and we got to focus on all that sort of stuff, right? But for this week, I think the key is to communicate and to collaborate and set the baseline and get used to the basic tools. You know, stick to Schoology, stick to Meet, stick to Google Chat, you know, stay in the Google universe. And let's see, I see some questions. Yes.
Yes, please. So I was trying to follow you. I grabbed my phone and downloaded the app, and then I went in, I signed in and everything, but it says enter a meeting code. And is my meeting code the one that says dial in or the one that says pin?
It's the dial in. So if you look at the top of your meeting on your computer, it's meet.google.com/EINEJGHQHG. So this goes back to whether if you schedule the meeting, if you schedule your meetings appropriately using Calendar, you don't need to type the code in because it's already going to be available in your dashboard. Whether that dashboard be digitally on your computer or on the app. Like I didn't have to type the code in because in my dashboard, I already have my 2 o'clock appointment. So that's why I'm really trying to reinforce scheduling through Calendar, giving all the kids as many ways to reach the meeting as simply as possibly. If you don't schedule in the calendar, then they have to go to Schoology and click the link or type the 10-digit code. If you schedule it in these 2 or 3 different ways, you're going to give them the resources to not have to think, right? And personally, I hate to think. Like, I just want it to be ready to go for me. Like, keep it simple. So if you schedule it in Calendar and you put it in Schoology, you're leaving them plenty of breadcrumbs to find their way home. I see, can you use an iPad? Yeah, any iDevice, any Google device. Google's great. They work with everything. It's not a restrictive product. Google Meet's available on a lot of things. I see Eric's doing a great job of answering questions, but okay, let me answer for Jay. I've missed, can we copy the class that's already there and add Google Meet to the new event? Yes, that's exactly what you do, Jay. So I'll go over to Calendar and show that. So let me just start over on that one really quick because it is a key point. So I don't have any classes. So I'm just using Brian's Gold Rush class as my example. This, again, only works in the Google interface. This won't work from Outlook. This won't work from your phone. So you have to go to the web. One click into an event, click the 3 dots, and duplicate. That's the key thing because you can't modify the events that are in there. They're built through a script in Veracross. So you can't modify the main event, but you can duplicate it and then you can edit it. And for our middle school teachers, you're going to want to change your date and time to match your new schedule. For upper school teachers, you shouldn't have to do that. And then you just go down here and add conference. And again, for those that may have missed it, that meeting link can be reused. And you can copy that meeting link simply by kicking the pencil and then copy. And then you could use that for all your sections, a single section, depending on your circumstances. But that meeting link can be reused, or you can create new ones every time. It's whatever workflow you're more comfortable with. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I have a question regarding, like, I'm going to have 2 classes together. That's 32 students.
Yes.
How do I do about you? First of all, you cannot see 32 faces, right?
Well,
At the
kinda,
same time.
sorta.
At the same
Not.
at the
No,
same
no, you can't see them at the same time.
Okay. Okay. But if you how do you also switch to see faces, to see them all?
The best way to see someone's face is engage with them. And I will tell you what I mean. So everyone still sees my screen. You hit the three dots and you could change your layout. So I think the most effective layout for a large group is sidebar. And then when you sidebar, so go ahead and speak.
Hi.
So now everyone should now have seen the green K pop on their screen,
Sorry.
and then now you're seeing my face. So if you want to engage with someone and you're not sure where they're at, and that's the simplest way to do it. But unfortunately, once you exceed 9 people in a meeting, there aren't any more tile options. Like you could do the Brady Bunch thing, right? You could change the layout to tiles, but I don't think it goes past 9. Right now, it's giving me 4.
Okay.
And I think if a bunch of people talking, it would give me 9, but right now I'm only seeing 4.
So
Okay.
is there a way to dictate which groups of people you see at the same time?
There's only one feature similar to that, and it's called pinning. Now, pinning it's similar to Spotlight as a feature. So if I was to pin you, Jay, that's it. No matter who speaks, you stay on my screen.
Okay.
That's beneficial to maybe request that students do that when you're speaking, so that way their focus stays on you. You could ask kids to pin you. Keep in mind, if you intend to share your screen and your face are separate windows. So you may say, hey guys, pin my presentation. And because like my face, no one cares about my face. I'm not adding anything to the meeting, to the content by looking at me. But what you could say is, hey, find my presentation and pin it. And then that way you're only going to see that. And that's where the content is. And that could be a choice for the larger meetings.
Okay. So sorry to ask again the question.
No problem.
Somehow I have you now pinned on my screen and your presentation is on the side. How do I switch that to see your presentation on the screen and you on the side?
Move your mouse to the presentation and press the thumbtack on the presentation.
Okay.
And now my presentation is pinned and my face is just a bubble along with everyone else.
Wait, somehow I have right now my own K, like it's the green. I don't see a presentation. Did I click somewhere where I shouldn't have?
You probably have it on, I'm not sure. I would try find my presentation again and click it, make sure the pin is clicked. The pin should be like a dull green color, I believe,
Right.
when it is checked.
Yeah, I see the pin.
Sorry, Jay.
Huh? Well, I see Jay now. I see Jay. You somehow Jay was pinned on my screen on the
Well,
big.
no, he wasn't pinned on your screen. I see what the problem is. You're looking at my presentation. I pinned Jay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Cool.
So
Okay.
Can I ask to
Yes.
clarify about the pins?
Sure. There's only one pin. It's not plural.
Okay, the pin. So if
Yes.
I have all of my students, they're all lined up on the side, right? Like we are now.
Yes.
And I might say, all right, everybody, we're going to do a warm up, but we can't all do it together. And I might say, okay, is there a way for me to pin one specific student and have them just on my screen? Like, do I pin them and bring them to my screen?
Pinning is a
bringing
personal
everyone?
preference.
Okay.
Me pinning is for me.
Okay.
A student pinning is for them.
Okay. And is there a way to mute or unmute on my end or only on their end?
No, you can control the microphone of everyone. And just for anecdotal reasons, I'm just going to mute you right now. Feel free to unmute yourself. But yes, as the host of the meeting, I do have that control.
How did you do
Uh,
it again?
So you just put your mouse over the person you don't want to speak anymore. Maybe there's a small disruption, and you just want to. They've engaged with something in their space, and they're disrupting the lesson. So you just move your mouse over their microphone, and you click it,
Okay.
and you'll know they're a disruption because their bubble will pop to their face will come towards the top of the screen, and you'll notice that they've left the screen for whatever reason. And it happens. Listen, there's going to be disruptions, and it's about managing those disruptions and setting class expectations. And let's see. That's pretty much it, guys. I mean, feel free to take a look at the slide. If you prefer written tutorials, if you're a written learner, go through these here. If you prefer video tutorials, feel free to follow this. It's a playlist of a couple of videos I created. I will also be linking this presentation here. I made a better effort to record one in full. I have not been recording in full. And then, any other questions? Well, we're going to be doing department time tomorrow. So I look forward to speaking to you more with your department and tackling more specifics on your individual needs. But happy to answer any Google Meet questions, Google questions, tech questions, however I can help.
Generally speaking, is the audio and the video synced up pretty well in these?
Well, not to your standard, sir. I mean, your audio quality expectations are going to be considerably higher than mine. I can't speak to like a singing voice coming through in a way that you really want it. The fidelity won't be there. But as far as like a talking head experience, it's adequate. It's adequate.
I think I know doing things with people together is just not going to happen. But if I could.
So I don't know if anyone else has experienced that. He had a little bit of a lag.
Yes, there's a lag. Yeah.
Yeah. So my recommendation, and this is a great tool inside of Schoology, right natively inside of Schoology is the record button. And you record audio or audio video. You do want to use Chrome, the Chrome browser for this. I would avoid Internet Explorer Safari. And this is going to provide a really high quality audio or audio video experience for listening. I know our language teachers use this all the time for them to speak and give direction in a foreign language. And I think it's a great tool to consider for singing as well. You're going to get a really nice quality using the Schoology native tool.
All right. I'll give that a try.
Yeah. Feel free to catch up offline if you haven't used it before. It's really simple. A lot of our students are already familiar with it because I know a lot of the language classes use it.
Yes. So trying to figure out here what happened with the tile at the beginning for most of the meeting. I did have it correctly where I have the tile of people on the side and then your presentation. You went out of your presentation, right? Completely?
I left my presentation.
Okay.
And to, again, go over the layout options, if you were to move your mouse over the bottom right corner,
Okay.
where the three dots are,
Yes.
you're going to see the layout choices.
Yes.
There's spotlight, sidebar, and tiled.
Okay.
I keep it on auto. And usually when you get to about more than 4 or 5 people in a room, it's going to use sidebar.
Okay. Okay.
But I generally just keep it on auto. I don't pin. I don't mess with the room very much. I just let it go. And I look for engagement. I ask people to speak to me. And as your sessions continue, you may notice, hey, like Eileen's a little shy. Let's hear from Eileen today. What are you thinking about everything, Eileen? You haven't contributed to class. Eileen, you're muted still, so
Unmute.
please unmute. And these are the things you're going to experience in class. There she goes.
You're doing a fabulous job, Dave.
Thank you very much. But that's what you can do, really. I mean, just try to keep engagement up. You guys are great at this. I mean, you spent countless hours in the front of the room. This is just another room. It doesn't feel like a room. It feels like you're sitting in your guest bedroom in front of a door. But it's a classroom like any other classroom.
Okay. Okay.
All right, guys. I'm good. I'm happy to hang out. I have a 3 o'clock, so I have nowhere to go. But if you'd like to stretch your legs, that's something I should actually bring up. I'm used to sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. It doesn't even faze me. This is normal. But for a lot of our community, this is a drastic change. You
Dave,
know?
I had a question.
Yeah,
I don't know if you could see me or how
I see you.
The question is, like, after I maybe give directions and I want the kids to work collaboratively on the material, is there a way for the students to just work among themselves in like small groups as if we were in the classroom?
I'm getting this question a lot. So what you're referring to is like a breakout room scenario. My recommendation is to decide how long you expect them to be in these breakout groups. If you're anticipating they're going to spend 15 or 20 minutes in a breakout room, that should be asynchronous. You should assign that. You should say to the kids, hey, the 3 of you are going to be in group 1. Find 20 minutes amongst yourselves and spend that time together and get back to me.
Okay.
If it's going to be for 30 seconds or a minute, you may want to rethink your lesson and invite a smaller group to collaborate in your main room, because the amount of time it will take for you to create the 3 or 4 breakout rooms, assign the kids to the breakout rooms, have them switch to the other meeting, collaborate, and then leave the other breakout room and come back to your primary room, you're going to spend 3 or 4 minutes of transit for a 1-minute exercise. So I would recommend reconsidering how you use breakout rooms depending on the amount of time you want the kids to spend in these groups. If there's nothing wrong with working in small groups, and certainly in the middle school, you're going to have to figure that out. You can't just have every session be 35, 40 kids in a room. That's not going to work. So there are going to be times when they're going to want to collaborate in smaller circles. And you can organize those circles by creating the meetings for them and providing them with the links and pre-assigning them. Or you could say, come up with your own groups, or however you want to manage the norms in your room. And that brings up something that I talked about at the very top of this meeting, and that's establishing your classroom norms. And I just want to point to something that Brian put together. He did a really nice job of defining that. And if you look at the presentation, preparing your physical space for a meeting, I will link directly to the document I'm referring to, so you don't have to go digging. So I will chat that right now. This is specific to a class, so take this as an idea. I hate to call it a syllabus because it's certainly not that, but it is an expectations sheet. And defining your expectations and how you want to execute what you want to do is going to be really beneficial to everyone, yourself and your students. You get to write it out and really think about it, and then they get to read it and understand it. So it's part of the faculty checklist, and it's a really good idea to go through the faculty checklist, if nothing else, as a thought exercise. Yeah, go for it. I see your hand raised.
Yeah, so I could create ahead of time 4 Google Meet addresses.
Yes.
I can share them with like the soprano 1, soprano 2, alto 1, alto 2s, and say for the next 15 minutes, I want you to work on this song in your Google Meet, and then we're going to come back to this address at this time, and then everyone would gather back together.
That's absolutely correct. If you're going to do that, it's effective, it works, it's more juggling, and I highly recommend using a good naming convention. You don't want to be stuck in a situation where you're depending on reading 4 10-digit characters to
Okay.
differentiate. You want to use good naming conventions. Your example was excellent of alto soprano, clearly delineating the rooms.
So okay, so I create those rooms by renaming the address, like when I set it up.
Yeah, you could either do it through an event request, through a calendar invite, or you can just go to meet.google.com and create the rooms.
And it would be something where I could join each of those rooms to see what's going on.
You could absolutely join 4 rooms at once. That is going to be very taxing on your internet. And it's also going to create feedback loops.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to mute yourself. You're going to want to mute the other rooms. I don't recommend. I was doing 4 this morning, and it's a juggle for me. And I'm not trying to knock anyone's tech skills, but 4 is a lot.
Okay.
4 is a lot. I would say you could juggle probably 3. You could probably juggle 3 rooms, listening to 3 independent conversations at once. At 4 independent conversations in your ears at once, it really blends together.
Okay.
And then I was also going to seek clarification on that. It was my understanding that students could not be basically without an adult supervision in middle school. And,
That may be true. I am not aware of the directives of the middle school administration. I defer to their policies. That is not a technical constraint. That is an administrative decision, if that's true.
yeah, I thought so.
Brian, I don't know if you can hear me. Brian is doing what we're discussing. He's sitting in multiple rooms. I don't know if you can hear me at the moment, but we have a question for you, Brian Burkhart. Yeah, no, he's probably.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. We have a question about breakout rooms via Google Meet, and apparently the middle school is saying kids can't be in a room without an adult.
That wasn't consistent with my understanding. I heard that going on. Sorry, I fumbled trying to turn on my microphone. I have that on my list of things to clarify. I've been trying to take some notes of some some ambiguities here. My understanding was we don't really have a way of the students have access to the product. So if we don't want to allow middle school students to create their own meets, then we would want to figure out how we were going to sort of rein that in. But my understanding was that they could, but I will follow up on that.
I may be incorrect on this, but I thought it was mainly about having one-on-one contact with the students and not just the individual, the group chats.
Correct. The one-on-one, I know that you're supposed to send a notification to parents if a one-on-one meeting is going to happen.
Thank you for that, Brian. Yeah, it'd be unfortunate if that turns out to be the policy, and we'd probably want to discuss why that decision was made, because there is some value in the breakout philosophy, right? There is opportunity there for good work to be done.
I may be incorrect, but that's what I thought I had understood. But I just was asking, also seeking clarification.
Yeah, we will definitely nail that one down and get a definitive answer.
Okay, thank you.
Dave,
Yes.
I have a question. Well, it's really kind of for Jay. So if you're doing, a performance kind of activity, aren't the kids singing together going to have the same problem that Jay, you leading the singing together would have in terms of time delay?
They're never going to sing together.
Oh, I see. Okay, so they're just meeting. All right.
I think they would sing for each other.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it.
If I give them like a practice recording in a file, I might say, all right, this person's the lead in this group, and that person, they'll go, ah, and then they'll say, okay, how was that? Or they can talk about it. Okay. It's a challenge to do an ensemble thing individually, but I think that's sort of how I'm approaching it is they all work on the same things, but they do them individually and then give each other feedback.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify because we have the same problem with the musical. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a very real challenge, I think, that we're going to really dive into. I imagine, and I'm just assuming, that there may be a technical solution for that outside of Meet, but to reiterate, week 1, focus on the basics. We'll see how long this thing goes. Let's get more elaborate. Let's add tools as we go. Let's start simple, keep it simple, keep down stress, certainly for week 1. But I like where your head's at. You guys are coming up with really creative ideas for lessons already, and that's all we could really hope for. So that's great.
Dave, a question about presenting here on Google Meet. When you say when you click down, it says present now your entire screen or a window. Is your entire screen meaning all your tabs that are open?
Your entire screen would be a visualization of your monitor. So exactly as you see it on your laptop is how everyone else sees it.
Okay.
A screen would be if you chose to use a application like Adobe or Chrome or a Word doc. It would be an isolated window. I would recommend playing with both outside of class time and seeing which one you prefer. I don't mind sharing my entire screen. Most of the faculty plug into projectors every day, so sharing your entire screen is not new.
Okay.
You remember to turn off your notifications so people don't see your iMessages and things like that. That's old hat for everybody. Everyone's presenting their screens all the time, so I'm not going to get into the details about that. But yeah, you want to be cognizant of what you have open. Certainly don't want to have, banking or private email or something like that. So everyone, again, that's minimizing distraction. To go back to one of the key points. No one wants to look at my face for an hour and 2 minutes. They're going to look at what's behind me. They're going to look what's on my shelves. They're going to look at my screen. They're going to read my email. So minimize those distractions.
Okay.
All right, guys, I have another one starting in like 1 minute. It's just a general tech Q&A. There's also a plan to have Brian in the other Q&A session for a more general Q&A. I want to thank everyone for coming in, and please reach out to techhelp@pingree.org, techhelp@pingree.org.
Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, gang.
Great
Have
day.
a good one, everybody.
All right.
Thanks.